Imagine being declared dead, placed in a coffin, and feeling the heat of cremation flames against your skin as you desperately scream for help. For one woman, this nightmare became reality. But the horrifying truth is that her journey through fire was no accident. Someone wanted her dead, erased, her body turned to ash to hide a decades-old secret marked permanently on her skin. Who would go to such lengths to silence her? Why was she marked with a mysterious triangular brand? As a young doctor and determined journalist fight to uncover the truth, they reveal a powerful cult operating from the shadows of Baltimore's elite institutions. Judges, doctors, police, all connected by a chilling symbol and ritual that has claimed countless vulnerable children. The deeper they dig, the more dangerous their quest becomes, with each revelation putting their lives in greater peril. Follow along as this heart-stopping story of survival, conspiracy, and the unbreakable human spirit unfolds. If you've ever wondered how far the powerful will go to protect their darkest secrets, this story will shake you to your core. Subscribe to the channel now, like this video, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because some truths are too powerful to face alone. The small room in Westlake Crematorium had fallen into the familiar rhythm that Tuesday afternoon. The gentle hum of machinery, the subtle scent of industrial cleaners failing to mask what everyone pretended not to notice. Outside, Maryland's autumn had painted the trees in crimson and gold, a stark contrast to the sterile walls where Richard Keller had worked for 17 years. Richard checked his watch, 4:47 p.m., as he prepared for the day's final cremation. Just 13 more minutes of his shift. His movements were mechanical, practiced over thousands of similar procedures. The body had arrived that morning, a Jane Doe from County General. Female, approximately 27, no identification, no next of kin. The paperwork was signed by someone from hospital administration, unusual but not unprecedented for indigent cases. "You almost done, Rich?" called Marcus from the hallway, keys jangling impatiently. "My kid's got a game at 6. "Last one," Richard replied, adjusting the temperature controls. "Give me 15 minutes. The body lay in the simple pine box, already positioned on the rolling tray. Richard had performed this ritual so many times, he barely glanced at the faces anymore. It was easier that way. But something about this one made him pause. Maybe it was the peaceful expression, or the faint mark on her exposed shoulder that resembled a triangle. Either way, she looked too young to end up here, unclaimed and forgotten. The sound of the crematorium door opening interrupted his thoughts. "Is this the indigent case from General?" The woman in the doorway wore scrubs under an open coat, her ID badge reading Dr. Hannah Collins. Her face was flushed, as if she'd been running. "Yes, ma'am," Richard answered, surprised by the late visitor. "Something wrong?" "Nothing," she said too quickly. "Just a procedure. Mind if I verify?" Richard shrugged, gesturing to the open casket. Hannah approached tentatively, her breath visible in the chilled room. She glanced at the body, then at the paperwork on the clipboard. "Angela Green," she read aloud. "That's what they're calling her." Richard nodded, glancing at his watch again. "Look, doctor, I don't mean to rush you, but we close at 5, and I need to—" "Of course," she stepped back, her eyes lingering strangely on the body. "Thank you." When she left, Richard resumed his work, closing the casket lid and securing it. The rollers engaged with a mechanical groan as he positioned the casket at the mouth of the furnace. With practiced efficiency, he pressed the button that would open the cremation chamber doors. The heat rushed out like an exhale from some great beast. Richard pushed the tray forward with the casket sliding smoothly into position. His hand moved to the lever that would seal the chamber and begin the final process. That's when he heard it. A sound so impossible, so viscerally wrong that his hand froze mid-motion. A muffled thump. Richard blinked, convinced his mind was playing tricks. 17 years, and he'd heard all kinds of settling noises, the natural sounds of wood contracting in heat. But this was followed by another, and another. Then came the scream. High-pitched and desperate, it pierced through the sealed casket and reverberated off the crematorium walls. A sound of pure terror, undeniably human. Richard stumbled backward, knocking over a metal tray of instruments that clattered to the floor. "Jesus Christ!" he shouted, lunging for the emergency stop. "Marcus, help!" His trembling fingers punched the button to retract the chamber doors. The casket was halfway into the furnace, smoke already billowing from the edges where the pine had begun to catch fire. Marcus burst into the room, eyes wide with confusion. What the hell? There's someone alive in there! Richard was already grabbing the metal hooks they used to position caskets. The screaming continued, now punctuated by frantic pounding from inside. The acrid smell of burning hair and flesh filled the room as both men dragged the smoldering casket back onto the rolling tray. The lid had begun to blacken and warp from the heat. "Call 911, Richard shouted, fumbling with the casket latches that were now searing hot. His fingers blistered as he wrenched them open. Inside, through billowing smoke, a woman's body thrashed in panic. Her hospital gown had started to melt against her skin where the flames had touched her. Parts of her hair had burned away, and angry red patches covered her exposed shoulders and arms. But her eyes were open. Wild with terror, they locked onto Richard's face as he stood frozen in disbelief. The woman's mouth opened and closed, desperate for air that wasn't thick with smoke. Her body convulsed with ragged coughs. Marcus had backed away to the doorway, phone in hand, speaking frantically to emergency services. The room filled with the wail of the building's fire alarm, triggered by the smoke. Richard moved on instinct, lifting the woman from the casket. Her skin was hot to the touch, parts of it already beginning to blister and peel. She was lightweight, almost childlike in his arms, and he could feel her heart hammering against his chest as he carried her away from the furnace. "Stay with me," he pleaded, laying her on the cold tile floor. "Help is coming." The woman's eyes fluttered, consciousness fading in and out. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. When Richard tried to adjust her position, her hospital gown shifted, revealing more of the strange triangular mark on her shoulder. It wasn't a birthmark as he had first thought. It was a brand, deliberately burned into her skin long before today. The sound of approaching sirens cut through the chaos. Staff members had gathered at the doorway, their faces masks of horror and disbelief. Richard kept his fingers pressed against the woman's neck, counting each weak pulse like a prayer. Then, just as the paramedics burst through the door, the woman's eyes cleared for one lucid moment. Her burned hand shot up, grasping Richard's wrist with surprising strength. She pulled him closer, her cracked lips parting. "Don't!" Her voice was barely a whisper, scraped raw from screaming. "Don't let them burn me again." Her eyes closed as the paramedics swarmed around her. Richard was pushed back, his mind still struggling to process her words. The stretcher disappeared through the doors, leaving behind the acrid smell of smoke and the smoldering casket. In the chaos, no one noticed Dr. Hannah Collins standing in the corner, her face drained of color. No one saw her trembling fingers trace a triangular shape on her own shoulder, or heard her whispered words, "They found you after all, Angela." Outside, as dusk settled over Westlake, the ambulance screamed into the distance. Inside the crematorium, the paperwork for Angela Green sat undisturbed on Richard's clipboard. At the bottom, a signature in crisp blue ink. Dr. Thomas Mercer, County Medical Examiner, the same Dr. Thomas Mercer who had been dead for 5 years. The hallways of Maryland General Hospital blazed with fluorescent light that bounced harshly off the polished linoleum floors. It was just past midnight, but the trauma ward hummed with activity as doctors and nurses moved between rooms with practiced urgency. Outside room 307, a uniformed police officer leaned against the wall, his expression a mixture of boredom and disbelief as he guarded the woman everyone was now calling the crematorium miracle. Dr. Hannah Collins stood at the nurse's station, her fingers wrapped around a paper coffee cup that had gone cold hours ago. Her 12-hour shift had ended at 7, but she couldn't bring herself to leave. Not when Angela Green, the woman who should have been ash by now, was fighting for her life just 30 feet away. "You're still here?" Dr. Randall Park's voice startled her. The head of emergency medicine looked as exhausted as she felt, dark circles shadowing his eyes. "Go home, Collins. There's nothing more you can do tonight." Hannah nodded mechanically but didn't move. "Have the lab results come back yet?" "Partial." Her tox screen showed heavy sedatives, enough to suppress vital signs in someone her size. Randall's voice dropped lower. "Hannah, this wasn't just a mistake. Someone deliberately tried to make her appear dead." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. "I want to be assigned to her case," Hannah said suddenly. Randall's eyebrows rose. "That's not protocol. Besides, we don't even know if she'll make it through the night. Burns over 30% of her body, smoke inhalation, trauma." "Please," Hannah interrupted. "I was the last person to see her before they almost cremated her." She didn't add that she'd been drawn to the crematorium by a call, an anonymous tip that had simply said, "They're burning the evidence, Westlake, 5 p.m. green." Randall studied her face, then sighed. "Fine, but this stays official. Everything documented. This is already turning into a media circus, and administration is freaking out about lawsuits." "Thank you," Hannah whispered, already turning toward room 307. Inside, machines beeped steadily, monitoring vital signs that danced on the edge of failure. Angela lay beneath a tented sheet, her burned skin protected from contact. Temporary bandages covered the worst areas, awaiting the specialist who would arrive in the morning. Her face had been mostly spared, though one side was reddened and beginning to blister. Even unconscious, her expression seemed tense, as if she was still trying to escape the flames. Hannah checked the chart hanging at the end of the bed. Whoever had filled it out had written Jane Doe, and then crossed it out, replacing it with Angela Green in different handwriting. "Where did they get that name?" Hannah muttered to herself. "From the crematorium paperwork," answered a nurse who had entered silently behind her. The woman, Diane, according to her badge, hung a new IV bag. Though no one seems to know who filled it out, strange case all around. Hannah nodded, watching as Diane efficiently checked Angela's vitals. "I'm going to check her records," Hannah said. "There must be something in the system explaining how she ended up at the crematorium." The hospital's records department was nearly deserted at this hour. A single security guard nodded as Hannah swiped her badge, granting her access to the computer system. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, searching for any record of Angela Green. Nothing. She tried again, this time searching for Jane Doe's admitted in the past week. Still nothing. Frowning, Hannah tried a broader search for any patient transferred to the morgue in the last 48 hours. 3 names appeared, but none matched Angela's description. It was as if the woman had never been a patient at Maryland General at all. "That's impossible," Hannah whispered, staring at the screen. "Working late, Dr. Collins?" Hannah jumped, turning to find Kevin Staten, the night security supervisor, watching her from the doorway. His presence had always unsettled her. Something about the way his smile never quite reached his eyes. "Just following up on the crematorium case," she said, closing the search window. Trying to figure out how she ended up there. Kevin's expression remained neutral. "Terrible mistake. Someone's going to lose their job over this one." "It wasn't just a mistake," Hannah said carefully. "There's no record of her ever being admitted. Someone falsified documents to send her to be cremated." Something flickered in Kevin's eyes. "I'd be careful about making accusations, Doctor, especially without evidence." Hannah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just trying to understand what happened." Kevin nodded slowly. "Well, good luck with that. Strange things happen in hospitals all the time, don't they?" He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Dr. Collins, the parking garage cameras are down tonight for maintenance. Take the front exit when you leave. Safer that way." After he left, Hannah sat frozen, her heart pounding unnaturally hard. Was that a threat? She pulled out her phone, took a photo of the screen showing no records for Angela Green, then printed the search results. As she walked back to Angela's room, Hannah noticed a black sedan with tinted windows idling in the doctor's parking area. She quickened her pace. When she reached room 307, she found Angela stirring restlessly, her monitors showing increased heart rate. Hannah approached cautiously, checking the IV lines. "No, please," Angela mumbled, her eyes still closed. "Don't mark me again." Hannah leaned closer. "Angela, can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glazed with pain. "They said the fire purifies," she whispered. Hannah felt her blood run cold. "Who said that, Angela? Who did this to you?" Angela's gaze drifted to the ceiling, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes. "The symbol is on the walls. They're watching, always watching." Hannah instinctively glanced at the triangular mark on Angela's shoulder, visible beneath the edge of her bandage. What does the symbol mean? But Angela's eyes had closed again, her breathing settling into the rhythm of drugged sleep. Hannah gently pulled back the bandage covering the triangular mark. It was raised and scarred, clearly made long before the crematorium burns. Someone had branded this woman like cattle. As Hannah replaced the bandage, she heard footsteps approaching and quickly straightened. From the corner of her eye, she saw a figure pause outside the door. Not a doctor or nurse, but someone in a dark suit. When she turned, they were already walking away. That night, as Hannah finally left the hospital, She felt eyes following her to her car. The black sedan was gone, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had been set in motion, something dangerous. In her pocket, the printed search results felt like they weighed 100 pounds. What she didn't see was the security camera above the parking lot entrance, its red light blinking as it tracked her movement. Nor did she notice when, miles away, in a darkened office, a man in an expensive suit watched that same footage on a monitor, his manicured finger tracing the outline of a small triangular pin on his lapel. 3 days later, a weak autumn sun filtered through the blinds of room 307, casting striped shadows across Angela Green's hospital bed. The burns on her body had begun their slow transformation from angry red to the deeper purple of healing tissue. The specialists had done what they could: debridement, grafts where necessary, careful treatment to prevent infection, but they had been more surprised by her rapid improvement than anything else. "She's fighting hard," they told Hannah. Harder than most. Hannah had barely left the hospital during those 3 days, stealing naps in the doctor's lounge and showering in the staff facilities. Officially, she had been granted temporary leave from her regular duties to oversee Angela's case, but unofficially she knew Dr. Randall had concerns about her obsession with the patient. She couldn't explain it herself, the pull she felt toward this woman and her mysterious story. When Angela's eyes finally fluttered open with true awareness for the first time since the crematorium, Hannah was reorganizing the medical supplies by her bedside. Their gazes locked, and Hannah felt an electric jolt of connection. "You're safe," Hannah said softly, approaching the bed. "You're at Maryland General Hospital. My name is Dr. Collins, Hannah. Can you tell me your name?" Angela's lips, cracked despite the medicated balm applied regularly, parted slightly. Her voice emerged as a rasp. "Water?" Hannah held a cup with a straw to her lips, supporting her head gently. Angela drank greedily, wincing as the liquid touched the raw spots in her throat, damage from screaming inside the casket. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes darting around the room before settling back on Hannah's face. "Where am I exactly?" "Baltimore, Maryland General." Hannah pulled her chair closer. "Do you remember what happened?" A tremor passed through Angela's body. "Fire," she said. "I remember fire and being trapped." Her hands began to shake and the monitor showed her heart rate spiking. "It's okay," Hannah soothed. "You're safe now. That's the most important thing." Angela seemed to calm slightly, though her fingers still trembled as they touched the bandages on her arm. "How bad?" "You've got second-degree burns over about 30% of your body, some third degree on your lower legs and back. But you were lucky, if you can call it that. The fire had just started when they pulled you out." Angela closed her eyes, a single tear escaping to trail down her cheek. "Not luck," she murmured. "They weren't finished with me yet." Hannah felt her skin prickle. "Who, Angela? Who wasn't finished?" But Angela had turned her face away. I don't remember much. Everything's fragmented, like shattered glass in my head." She looked back at Hannah with frightened eyes. "I don't even know if Angela is really my name." "Is it?" Hannah hesitated, then decided on honesty. "It's the name on the paperwork from the crematorium, but we haven't found any official records for you under that name. No driver's license, no social security number, nothing." "Then how do you know that's who I am?" "We don't," Hannah admitted. "Someone filled out those crematorium forms, but we don't know who." Angela fell silent, her gaze distant. Then, without warning, she said, "There were children crying. Always crying." Hannah leaned forward. "What children?" "In the big house, with the stone walls and the narrow windows." Angela's voice had taken on a dreamy quality. "Sister Mary Margaret told us to be quiet during prayers, or we'd get the rod again. But the little ones couldn't stop sometimes, especially the new arrivals." Hannah grabbed her notebook from the bedside table and began writing. "Is this a memory? From where you lived?" Angela nodded slowly. "St. Martha's, I think. The home for unwanted children." Her face crumpled slightly. "That's what Sister called us. God's forgotten lambs." Hannah's pen paused. "St. Martha's home? Here in Maryland?" "I think so. It was cold there. Not just the temperature. Everything was cold." Angela's fingers absently traced patterns on the sheet. "Sister Mary Margaret wore a silver cross, not like the others. Hers had something else on it. A triangle, I think. She said it represented the Trinity, but it didn't look like any Trinity symbol I'd seen in the books." Hannah's heart pounded as she remembered the triangular brand on Angela's shoulder. Did all the children at St. Martha's have marks on their bodies? Angela's eyes widened with sudden fear. The mark, she whispered, her hand moving instinctively to her shoulder. You've seen it? Yes, Hannah said gently. It's like a triangle, burned into your skin. Don't, Angela's voice rose in panic. Don't tell anyone about the mark, please. They'll find me if they know I still have it. Who will find you, Angela? Who did this to you? But Angela had begun to hyperventilate, the monitors beeping in alarm. Hannah quickly administered a mild sedative through the IV, watching as Angela's breathing gradually steadied. Rest now, she said softly. I won't let anyone hurt you again. When Angela had drifted into sleep, Hannah slipped out of the room and headed straight to the hospital library with its public computers. She didn't trust the hospital system anymore, not after finding Angela's records completely erased. A search for St. Martha's Home, Maryland, brought up several old newspaper articles. The most recent, dated 15 years ago, had the headline, Controversial Children's Home Closed Amid Allegations. Hannah clicked, reading quickly. St. Martha's Home for Children, a Catholic-affiliated orphanage operating in rural Maryland since 1954, has closed its doors following undisclosed allegations. The facility, which housed up to 60 children at its peak, has been under scrutiny for its disciplinary practices, though no formal charges have been filed. Court records relating to the investigation have been sealed by order of District Judge William Green. Hannah stared at the name. Green, the same surname as Angela. She scrolled through more articles, finding only vague references to allegations of misconduct and improper disciplinary methods. Nothing specific, nothing about religious rituals or branding. A grainy black and white photograph showed the imposing stone building of St. Martha's Home, with a group of nuns and several children arranged stiffly on the front steps. Hannah squinted at the image, looking for anything familiar. Her phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. The answers you want aren't online. Meet me. Ridgely's Deli, 8 p.m. Hannah stared at the message, her stomach tightening with apprehension. It could be a trap, or it could be someone with real information. Before she could decide, another text arrived from the same number. I've been following the crematorium miracle. I'm a journalist. I can help. Eli Barnes. She quickly searched Eli Barnes, Journalist, Baltimore, and found several legitimate articles under his byline for the Baltimore Herald, mostly investigative pieces on local corruption. This wasn't some random person. With newfound determination, Hannah returned to Angela's room. To her surprise, she found her patient awake again, staring at the ceiling with clear eyes. I remembered something else, Angela said as Hannah checked her vitals. There was a tree, a huge oak tree behind St. Martha's. We weren't allowed near it, but I went there once when I was 9. I found small bones buried under it. Animal bones, I thought, but now I'm not so sure. Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. Angela, I think I found information about St. Martha's Home. It was shut down 15 years ago after some kind of investigation. Angela nodded slowly. That makes sense. I think I was around 12 when we all got sent away. Her forehead creased with effort. But I don't remember where I went after. It's like a black hole in my memory. The investigation was overseen by a Judge William Green, Hannah said carefully, watching Angela's face. Does that name mean anything to you? For a moment, Angela showed no reaction. Then her hand flew to her mouth, her entire body tensing. No, she whispered. No, please don't say that name. Angela, your last name on the paperwork was Green. Is there a connection? Is he a relative? I can't... Angela clutched at the sheets, her face contorted. I can't talk about him. Never about him. They'll know. The symbol sees everything. Before Hannah could press further, Angela grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. Promise me, she hissed urgently. Promise you won't tell anyone about the symbol on my shoulder. Not anyone. Hannah hesitated, then nodded. I promise. That night, after Angela had been sedated again, Hannah stood in the darkened hospital room and carefully photographed the triangular brand on the woman's shoulder. She needed evidence, something concrete to show Eli Barnes. As she slipped the phone back into her pocket, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. What she didn't know was that by morning, the photograph would be mysteriously deleted from her phone, and the security camera footage from room 307 would show nothing but static during those critical minutes. Ridgely's Deli sat on a corner in downtown Baltimore, its neon sign flickering weakly against the evening gloom. The autumn rain had started just after sunset, transforming the streets into mirrors that reflected the city lights in distorted patterns. Hannah arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a booth in the back where she could watch the door while remaining partially hidden from view. The place smelled of pastrami and pickle brine, with faded photographs of local celebrities covering the walls. Hannah ordered coffee and waited, her nerves making her fingers tap an uneven rhythm on the laminate tabletop. At precisely 8 p.m., a man in his early 30s with rain-speckled glasses pushed through the door, scanning the deli with the alert gaze of someone accustomed to noticing details. "Dr. Collins?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from her. "Eli Barnes. Thanks for meeting me." Up close, he looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion Hannah recognized from her own reflection lately. His brown hair curled damply against his forehead, and his messenger bag dripped water onto the linoleum floor. "How did you get my number?" Hannah asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Eli's lips quirked in what might have been a smile under different circumstances. "Hospital directories aren't exactly Fort Knox, but that's not important." He leaned forward. "What matters is that your Jane Doe, Angela Green, is connected to something bigger than a crematorium mix-up." Hannah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain seeping through her jacket. "You know about St. Martha's?" "I've been investigating it for months," Eli nodded, pulling a weathered notebook from his bag. "It started with a story on foster system abuses. I kept finding references to St. Martha's, always in the margins, always hushed. Former residents who would start to talk, then clam up. Records that went missing." The waitress arrived with Eli's coffee, and they fell silent until she retreated. Hannah glanced around the deli, suddenly paranoid about who might be listening. "What happened there?" she asked quietly. Eli took a deep breath. "Officially, it was shut down due to violations of state childcare regulations. Unofficially, I believe it was a grooming operation disguised as a religious orphanage. Children with no families, no oversight, completely at the mercy of the staff." Hannah felt sick. Grooming for what? "That's where it gets complicated," Eli said, opening his notebook to reveal pages of scribbled notes and newspaper clippings. "At first, I thought it was the usual horrible story, sexual abuse, physical abuse. But then I started finding references to something called the purification." Hannah's coffee turned bitter in her mouth. "Angela mentioned something about fire purifying." Eli's eyes sharpened. "Exactly. There was a religious component, or at least they used religion as cover. The children were being prepared for something, some kind of ritual or service." "Prepared how?" Hannah dreaded the answer. "Indoctrination, isolation, physical marking." Eli tapped a crude sketch in his notebook, a triangle with some kind of symbol inside it. "Sound familiar?" Hannah nodded, her throat tight. "Angela has that mark burned into her shoulder. She was terrified when I mentioned it." "I need to see her," Eli said urgently. "And we need to find St. Martha's. The building is still standing, abandoned out in Howard County. If there's evidence—" "I can't just take you to see a patient," Hannah interrupted. "And Angela is still recovering from severe burns. She's traumatized, confused, and in danger," Eli finished. "So are you if you're poking around in this. The people connected to St. Martha's are powerful. Judge William Green is just the tip of the iceberg." Hannah's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced down, expecting it to be the hospital, but the screen displayed an unknown number. "Stop asking questions. For your own safety." She showed it to Eli, whose face hardened. "That's why we need to move quickly. Can you get Angela's medical records? Anything that might tell us more about her past?" "There are no records," Hannah said. "That's the thing. All traces of her were wiped from the hospital system. The only paper trail was the crematorium form, and even that had a forged signature." Eli was silent for a moment, thinking. "Then we'll have to go to the source. St. Martha's itself." "How? We can't just break into an abandoned building." "Not breaking in," Eli said with a grim smile. "Investigating. That's what press credentials are for." The next morning dawned gray and cold. Hannah had arranged for a trusted colleague to watch over Angela, claiming she needed to take care of personal business. The lie tasted sour, but she couldn't risk arousing suspicion. She met Eli at a coffee shop near the hospital, and they drove in his battered Honda Civic toward Howard County. The landscape gradually transformed from urban sprawl to scattered suburbs, and finally to the rolling countryside of rural Maryland. Bare trees stretched skeletal fingers toward the pewter sky, and mist hung in the valleys between low hills. After nearly an hour, Eli turned onto a rutted private road nearly hidden by overgrown bushes. "This is it," he said, as St. Martha's Home for Children emerged from the trees. The building loomed against the grey sky like a decaying giant, 3 stories of weathered stone with narrow church-like windows. Vines crawled up the walls, reclaiming the structure inch by inch. A small chapel stood to one side, its stained glass windows shattered, the coloured shards scattered like fallen stars on the ground below. Behind the main building, Hannah could just make out the massive oak tree Angela had mentioned. "It feels..." Hannah struggled for the word as they approached the padlocked front doors. "Evil," Eli supplied quietly. "I know." Using a small crowbar from his trunk, Eli pried open a side door whose lock had already been broken by previous trespassers. They stepped into a musty entrance hall, their flashlight beams cutting through the gloom. Dust motes danced in the air, disturbed by their movement. "Look," Hannah whispered, pointing to the walls. What she had first taken for peeling paint resolved into markings, hundreds of them etched into the plaster. Triangular symbols, some crude, some precise, all with the same basic form. Alongside them, scrawled phrases took shape under her flashlight. "Fire is purification. Only the chosen return. Through flame to salvation." "My God," Eli breathed, photographing the walls. "It's like they were brainwashing these kids." They moved deeper into the building, through a large dining hall with long tables still set with rusted cutlery, as if the occupants had left in a hurry. Upstairs, they found dormitories with small, metal-framed beds arranged in neat rows. In one room, charred circles marked the floor where small fires had been deliberately set. "Preparation," Eli murmured, crouching to examine the burn marks. "Getting them used to fire." In what must have been the headmistress's office, they found filing cabinets that had been emptied, their contents likely destroyed years ago. But behind one cabinet, dislodged when Eli moved it, a yellowed envelope fell to the floor. Hannah picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside were photographs, group shots of children arranged by age, standing stiffly in front of the building. Each child wore a simple uniform, their faces solemn. On the back, faded handwriting listed names and dates. "These must be intake records," Hannah said, flipping through them. "Wait." She stopped at a photo dated 16 years ago. Among the row of girls aged 10-12, a familiar face stared back at her. The child had the same distinctive eyes as Angela, though her hair was cropped short, her expression vacant. "That's her," Hannah whispered, showing Eli. "That's Angela." Eli studied the photo carefully. The name on the back says, Rebecca. No last name. "She told me she wasn't sure Angela was her real name," Hannah recalled. "Maybe Rebecca is..." A sudden noise from downstairs cut her off, the unmistakable sound of the side door opening. They froze, listening to footsteps moving through the entrance hall. "Someone's here," Eli whispered, quickly stashing the photos in his bag. "We need to leave. Now." They crept toward the back staircase, freezing again when a flashlight beam swept up from below. The footsteps were getting closer, deliberate and unhurried, as if whoever had entered knew exactly where they were. Eli pointed to a window at the end of the hall. They moved silently toward it, easing it open to reveal a rusted fire escape. The metal creaked ominously as they climbed down, but the sound of rain starting again helped mask the noise. They ran toward Eli's car, the wet grass slippery underfoot. Just as they reached it, Hannah glanced back at the building. A figure stood at an upstairs window watching them. Though she couldn't make out the face, she could clearly see something glinting on the person's lapel, a small triangular pin catching the dim light. As they drove away, tires spinning in the mud, Hannah's phone buzzed again. The message chilled her to the bone. "You were warned. Now she'll pay the price." "Drive faster," she told Eli, already dialing the hospital. "They're going after Angela." Eli's Honda Civic tore through the rain-slicked roads, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. Hannah's knuckles were white as she clutched her phone, having tried 3 times to reach the nurse she'd left in charge of Angela. Each call went straight to voicemail. "Try Dr. Randall," Eli suggested, taking a turn too sharply. The tires skidded momentarily before regaining traction. Hannah's fingers trembled as she dialed. After 4 rings, Randall answered. "Collins, where the hell are you?" "Is Angela safe?" Hannah demanded, ignoring the question. "Room 307, I need you to check on her right now." "What? I'm in surgery. I can't just..." "Please," Hannah's voice broke. "Someone may be trying to hurt her. Call security, get someone to her room immediately. A pause, then Randall's voice lower now. Stay on the line. The next 2 minutes stretched like hours as Hannah listened to Randall barking orders in the background. Finally, he returned. Security is checking her room now. What's going on, Collins? I'll explain everything when I get there. Just make sure no one goes near her except hospital security. Hannah hung up before Randall could protest further. Faster, she urged Eli, who was already pushing the speed limit on the rain-soaked highway. If I go any faster, we'll crash, he replied grimly. We're 20 minutes out. Tell me more about Angela, or Rebecca, I guess. What exactly did she say about St. Martha's? Hannah closed her eyes, forcing herself to focus. She mentioned a Sister Mary Margaret who wore a silver cross with a triangle, said they were told the fire purifies, and she was terrified when I mentioned Judge William Green. Eli nodded, wiping condensation from the windshield. I've been investigating Green for months. Powerful man from old Maryland money. He was on the board that supervised state funding for religious charities, including St. Martha's. But here's where it gets interesting. He resigned from the bench right after St. Martha's closed, citing personal reasons. Disappeared from public life for almost a year. You think he was involved in whatever happened there? I think he was instrumental, Eli said darkly. My sources say he personally selected which children went to St. Martha's, had final approval on all placements. Hannah's phone rang, startling them both. It was Randall. She's gone, he said without preamble. The room is empty. Security found Nurse Chen unconscious in the supply closet. Someone took Angela. The world seemed to tilt beneath Hannah. How? There was a police officer, called away on a false emergency 15 minutes ago. By the time he realized it was a hoax, it was too late. Randall sounded shaken. Hannah, what the hell have you gotten into? The police are on their way, and they're going to have questions. I'll be there soon, she promised, ending the call. Eli's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. They got to her, damn it! We need to find her, Hannah said, fighting back tears of frustration. The photos from St. Martha's. Look at them again. Maybe there's something we missed. Eli handed her his bag, without taking his eyes off the road. Hannah pulled out the envelope with shaking hands, spreading the photographs across her lap. She studied each one meticulously, looking for any clue that might help them. In the group photo where they'd identified Angela, Rebecca as a child, Hannah noticed something she'd missed before. In the background, partially obscured by the children, stood a man in a light-colored suit. His face wasn't clearly visible, but on his hand, Eli, she breathed. Look at this. When we reach a stoplight. When they finally hit a red light in the Baltimore suburbs, Eli glanced down at the photo where Hannah was pointing. What am I looking at? His hand. The ring. Hannah used her phone's flashlight for better illumination. The man in the background wore a distinctive gold ring with what appeared to be an official seal or crest. That's a judicial ring, Eli said slowly, realization dawning. Maryland state judges receive them upon appointment. The pieces suddenly locked into place in Hannah's mind. It's Judge Green in the photo. And look at the date. 16 years ago. Angela, Rebecca, would have been around 11. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What if she isn't just connected to St. Martha's? What if she's connected to Green himself? The light turned green and Eli accelerated, the hospital now just minutes away. It would explain why they're so desperate to silence her. But what's the connection? Hannah stared at the photo, at the solemn-faced girl who would grow up to be almost burned alive. What if, she began, the theory so awful she could barely voice it. What if she's his daughter? Eli's sharp intake of breath was the only sound for a moment. A child he wanted to hide. That would explain everything. Why records were erased, why St. Martha's was shut down so abruptly, why they tried to kill her now. By the time they reached Maryland General, the police had established a perimeter around the building. Eli dropped Hannah at the entrance, promising to park and meet her inside. She flashed her ID to the officers and rushed to Angela's room, where Dr. Randall and 2 detectives waited. Dr. Collins, one of the detectives said, stepping forward. I'm Detective Morris. We need to ask you some questions about your patient. I don't have time for this, Hannah said, looking around the room for any sign of where Angela might have been taken. She's in danger. We need to find her. That's what we're trying to do, Morris replied evenly. But we need to understand what's going on. Dr. Park tells us you've been acting strangely, obsessing over this patient, and now you disappear right before she's abducted. Hannah felt the weight of suspicion settling on her shoulders. Before she could defend herself, Randall spoke up. Hannah's been working overtime to protect this patient. Whatever's happening, she's not involved in the abduction. Detective Morris looked unconvinced. Then perhaps she can explain why she was at an abandoned building in Howard County this morning, instead of attending to her duties. A chill ran through Hannah. They knew about St. Martha's, which meant, "You're not really investigating the abduction, are you?" she said slowly, backing away. "You're here to stop me from finding her." Morris's face hardened. "Dr. Collins, you're interfering in matters beyond your understanding. My advice? Forget about Angela Green. Go back to your life. Some stones are better left unturned." "Who do you work for?" Hannah demanded, her back now against the wall. "Is it Judge Green? Is he behind all this?" The detective's expression gave nothing away, but his partner's hand moved subtly toward his weapon. Hannah realized with growing horror that she wasn't safe here, perhaps had never been safe since the moment she'd gone to the crematorium to check on an anonymous tip. The standoff was broken by Dr. Randall's pager beeping loudly. He checked it, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "There's been a serious multi-car pileup on the highway. All available staff needed in the ER." He looked at Hannah. "That includes you, Collins." It was a lifeline, and Hannah seized it. "Of course." She moved toward the door, the detectives watching her every move. "We'll continue this later." In the chaotic emergency department, Hannah found Eli waiting near the ambulance bay. "We need to leave," she whispered. "Those aren't real detectives upstairs, or if they are, they're working for Green." Eli nodded grimly. "I had a feeling. I've got my car ready. We can slip out during the next ambulance arrival. But where do we go? How do we find Angela?" Eli pulled out his phone, showing her a news article he'd just received from a colleague. The headline read, "Prominent Judges Charity Gala Set for Tonight at Harbor Grand Hotel." "William Green," Hannah read, her heart pounding. "Do you think she's there?" "I think it's our best lead," Eli replied. "If Green is behind this, he'd want to keep her close, someplace secure where his people have control. The Harbor Grand has private suites, tight security." The emergency doors burst open as ambulances arrived with the accident victims. In the commotion, Hannah and Eli slipped outside and ran to his car. As they drove away, Hannah spotted the two detectives emerging from the hospital entrance, scanning the parking lot with predatory focus. "They're looking for us," she said, ducking down in her seat. "We've just become fugitives, haven't we?" "Technically, we haven't broken any laws," Eli replied, though he didn't sound convinced. "But yes, we're now officially in dangerous territory." As they drove toward the harbor, Hannah's phone chimed with a text message. "Unknown number," again. But this time the message made her blood freeze. 24, the Julgamento do Fogo. "What does that mean?" Eli asked, glancing at the screen. Hannah swallowed hard. "It's Portuguese. It means judgment of fire. And the date, April 20th. That's today's date." They shared a look of growing dread. Whatever the judgment of fire meant, they had only hours to find Angela before it began. The Harbor Grand Hotel stood like an illuminated fortress against the darkening evening sky, its Art Deco facade bathed in golden light. Black luxury cars disgorged Baltimore's elite onto the red carpet leading to the grand entrance, where doormen in crisp uniforms ushered them inside. Security was visible but discreet, men with earpieces positioned strategically around the perimeter, scanning faces with practiced efficiency. From their vantage point in Eli's car, parked across the street, Hannah and Eli watched the procession of glittering guests arriving for Judge William Green's annual charity gala. Through binoculars, Eli studied the security arrangements. "Main entrance is impossible," he concluded, lowering the binoculars. "Service entrance will be watched too. We need another way in." Hannah felt utterly out of her depth. 2 days ago, she'd been a respected emergency room doctor. Now she was hiding in a car, planning to infiltrate a high society event to rescue a woman who might be the illegitimate daughter of a powerful judge involved in some kind of cult. It seemed absurd, yet the gravity of Angela's desperate face kept her focused. "What about press credentials?" she suggested. "You're a legitimate journalist." Eli shook his head. "They'll have a pre-approved list. If Green is behind everything, my name will raise red flags." He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, thinking, "We need a distraction, something to draw security away from one of the entrances." Hannah's phone rang. Randall. She hesitated, then answered. "Where the hell are you, Collins?" His voice was tight with tension. "I can't tell you that," she replied. "It's better if you don't know. Those detectives are still here, turning the hospital upside down looking for you. They've seized Angela's medical records, your personal files. They're saying you're interfering with a federal investigation." Hannah's grip tightened on the phone. "They're lying, Randall. There is no federal investigation. These people tried to burn Angela Green alive, and now they've taken her again." A long pause, then, "What do you need?" The unexpected offer of help made her voice catch. A distraction. Something to draw security away from the Harbor Grand Hotel's west entrance in the next 20 minutes. Another pause. "I have a friend who works for the fire department. One phone call about a possible gas leak in the hotel kitchen would trigger an automatic response. You'd do that for me? Risk your career? I saw the mark on that woman's shoulder, Collins. I saw how they wiped her from our records like she never existed. Something's wrong here, and I trust you." His voice lowered. "Just be careful. These people are clearly powerful and dangerous." 10 minutes later, the wail of fire engines pierced the night as 3 trucks converged on the Harbor Grand. Hotel staff began directing guests away from the West Wing, while security personnel moved to assist with the evacuation protocol. In the confusion, Hannah and Eli slipped through a service entrance, Eli wearing a borrowed catering jacket and Hannah in a black cocktail dress they'd hastily purchased from a nearby department store. Once inside, they separated, Eli heading to the security office to try to access the building's camera system, while Hannah circulated among the displaced guests who had been herded into the main ballroom. The ballroom was a marvel of old-world elegance. Crystal chandeliers, marble columns, and a sweeping staircase at the far end. Baltimore's wealthiest citizens clustered in groups, sipping champagne and discussing the inconvenience of the fire alarm with practiced nonchalance. Hannah scanned the room, searching for any sign of Judge Green or his associates. She spotted him on the mezzanine level, a tall man in his 70s with silver hair and the ramrod posture of someone accustomed to command. Even from a distance, Hannah could sense the power he exuded, the deferential way others orbited around him. On his lapel, barely visible, gleamed a small triangular pin. Hannah's heart pounded as she made her way toward the staircase, only to freeze when she recognized one of the detectives from the hospital standing guard at the bottom. She retreated, seeking another route upstairs, when a hand closed around her arm. "Dr. Collins," a smooth voice said. "What an unexpected pleasure." She turned to find Kevin Staton, the hospital security supervisor, smiling coldly at her. He wore an expensive suit now, not a uniform, and the same triangular pin adorned his lapel. "Where is she?" Hannah demanded, trying to pull away without causing a scene. "Your concern for our mutual friend is touching but misplaced," Kevin replied, his grip tightening painfully. "She's receiving the care she needs, special care for a special child." "She's not a child," Hannah hissed. "She's a woman you tried to murder." Kevin's smile didn't waver. "Death is just a transition, Doctor. Some must pass through the fire to achieve purification." He began steering her toward a side door, his movements fluid and confident. "Judge Green will be pleased to see you. He's been hoping for a chance to discuss your interference." Hannah felt panic rising in her throat. Where was Eli? She had no way to signal him, no way to call for help in a room full of people who might all be part of whatever sinister organization Kevin represented. As they approached the door, she glimpsed a service elevator beyond and made her decision. With a sudden twist, she drove her elbow into Kevin's solar plexus. He doubled over with a grunt of surprise, and Hannah broke free, darting through the door and toward the elevator. Behind her, she heard Kevin calling for security, his voice ragged with pain and anger. The elevator doors opened as she reached them, revealing a startled hotel employee with a room service cart. Hannah pushed past him, jabbing at the button for the top floor. As the doors began to close, she saw Kevin running toward her, rage contorting his features. The elevator ascended smoothly, giving Hannah precious seconds to think. If they had Angela in the hotel, she would be kept somewhere secure but private. The presidential suite, perhaps, or a reserved floor. She needed to find Eli, combine their information. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Penthouse level, room 1701. Hurry." Eli, she assumed, must have accessed the security system. When the elevator stopped at the top floor, Hannah cautiously peered out. The hallway was deserted, thick carpet muffling her footsteps as she moved toward room 1701. She hesitated at the door. It could be a trap, but if Angela was inside, Hannah pressed her ear against the wood, listening for any sound. Faint voices filtered through. A woman sobbing, a man speaking in low, measured tones. "The purification ritual cleanses all sins," the male voice was saying. "Your resistance only prolongs your suffering, Rebecca." Rebecca, Angela's real name. Hannah's resolve hardened. She tried the door handle, unsurprised to find it locked. Looking around desperately for something to use, her eyes fell on the fire extinguisher in its wall cabinet. She broke the glass with her elbow, the noise seeming impossibly loud in the quiet hallway. With the heavy extinguisher in hand, Hannah struck the door handle with all her strength. The lock splintered on the third blow, the door swinging open to reveal a scene from a nightmare. Angela, Rebecca, lay strapped to a table in the center of the suite's living room, wearing a white gown reminiscent of a hospital garment. Her arms bore fresh burns in precise patterns, deliberate marks added to her already damaged skin. Around her stood 4 people in dark clothing, all wearing the triangular pins. One held a branding iron, its tip still glowing red from recent use. And at the head of the table, his hand resting on Angela's forehead in a grotesque parody of paternal affection, stood Judge William Green. "Dr. Collins," he said without looking up, "we've been expecting you. Please come in. You're just in time to witness Rebecca's final purification." The door slammed shut behind Hannah, and she turned to find Kevin Staton blocking her exit, a gun held casually in his hand. "The fire extinguisher was an ironic choice of weapon," Judge Green remarked with chilling amusement, "considering fire is our sacrament." "Let her go," Hannah demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Whatever sick game you're playing, it's over. People know what you've done." The judge finally looked at her, his eyes cold and empty as a winter sky. "No one knows anything, Dr. Collins. No one ever has. St. Martha's Home served its purpose for decades without interference. When complications arose, they were eliminated." "Complications like your own daughter," Hannah challenged, watching his face for confirmation. "Rebecca is your child, isn't she? Born to one of the St. Martha's staff?" A shadow passed over the judge's aristocratic features. "Blood ties are irrelevant. Rebecca was chosen for a higher purpose, to be a vessel of purification. Her resistance has been disappointing." From the table, Angela's eyes found Hannah's, filled with a mixture of terror and desperate hope. Her lips moved soundlessly, forming what looked like, "Help me." "You won't get away with this," Hannah said, playing for time, praying Eli had managed to alert authorities. "The hospital knows I'm here. The fire department is already downstairs." "A minor inconvenience," Green dismissed with a wave of his hand. "But since time is now of the essence, we'll proceed with the final ritual immediately." He nodded to the man holding the branding iron. "Mark her with the seal of judgment." As the man moved toward Angela, Hannah acted on pure instinct. She discharged the fire extinguisher directly at the group, filling the room with chemical fog. In the confusion, she lunged toward the table, using the heavy canister to strike the man with the branding iron. He crumpled with a cry of pain, the iron clattering to the floor. Hannah frantically worked to unstrap Angela, managing to free one of her arms before Kevin emerged from the chemical cloud, gun raised. There was no hesitation in his eyes as he took aim at Hannah's chest. The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Kevin's expression morphed from determination to confusion as a bloom of red appeared on his own chest instead. He collapsed to his knees, then forward onto his face, revealing Eli standing in the doorway, a smoking pistol in his hand. "We need to move," he said grimly, rushing to help Hannah free Angela. "I've called in every favor I have. The real police are on their way, but Green has people everywhere. We can't trust anyone until we get her somewhere safe." Judge Green and the others had retreated to the far side of the room, the judge's face contorted with fury. "This changes nothing," he spat. "The purification will be completed. It must be." As they lifted Angela from the table, Hannah noticed something she had missed before. The fresh burns on Angela's arms weren't random. They formed words in an ancient script she couldn't read. And around the judge's neck hung a silver chain with a familiar triangular pendant. "The necklace," Angela whispered weakly as they carried her toward the door. "Take it. Evidence." Eli moved quickly, ripping the chain from the judge's neck before the older man could react. Then they were out the door and running toward the service elevator, Angela barely conscious between them. Behind them, Judge Green's voice echoed with chilling certainty. "You cannot escape the fire, Rebecca. The blood calls to blood." 3 days later, The safe house outside Annapolis sat shrouded in early morning mist. It was a modest cabin, nestled among pine trees that whispered with each passing breeze. Inside, Angela, now firmly insisting on being called Rebecca, sat by the window, a blanket draped over her shoulders despite the warmth of the room. The burns on her arms had been treated, bandaged by Hannah using supplies from a medical kit, but the psychological wounds ran deeper than any physical injury. Hannah watched her from the small kitchen, where she was preparing tea. The woman's profile was silhouetted against the grey light filtering through the window, delicate, almost fragile, yet with a newfound determination in the set of her jaw. "You should try to rest," Hannah said, bringing the steaming mug over. "The hearing is tomorrow. You'll need your strength." Rebecca accepted the tea with bandaged hands. "I've been resting for days. What I need is to face him, to end this." The him didn't need clarification. Judge William Green, Rebecca's biological father, and the leader of a cult that had used St. Martha's Home as a front for decades, subjecting orphaned children to ritualistic abuse under the guise of religious purification. Thanks to Eli's journalistic connections and his foresight in making copies of all their evidence, the story had broken nationally 2 days ago. The silver triangle pendant they'd taken from Judge Green had proven crucial. Inside was a microchip containing encrypted files detailing the purification protocol and a list of children's names dating back 30 years, including Rebecca's. The FBI had taken over the investigation, and Judge Green had been placed under house arrest pending a bail hearing. His influential position had secured him preferential treatment, a fact that made Rebecca's hands tremble with suppressed rage whenever it was mentioned. "We have a strong case," Hannah assured her, sitting down across from her. "The evidence is overwhelming. The photographs from St. Martha's, the pendant, the testimony from other survivors who've come forward since the story broke." Rebecca's eyes, haunted yet determined, met Hannah's. "Evidence isn't enough. These people have been operating for generations, hiding behind respectability and power. I need to face him in that courtroom. I need everyone to hear what he did." A knock at the door sent them both into immediate tension. Eli had gone out for supplies hours ago and wasn't expected back yet. Hannah moved quietly to the side table where a gun, borrowed from one of Eli's more questionable contacts, lay hidden under a magazine. "It's me," came Eli's voice, and both women relaxed marginally. The agreed-upon code phrase followed, "Brought some of that tea you like." Hannah unlocked the door, revealing an exhausted-looking Eli, arms laden with groceries. The dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights, spent verifying facts, contacting sources, ensuring their story was bulletproof before publication. "Any news?" Rebecca asked immediately. Eli set down the bags and ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Green's legal team is filing motions to dismiss, claiming evidence was obtained illegally. They're trying to discredit you, Hannah, suggesting you developed an unhealthy obsession with a vulnerable patient." He hesitated, then added, "And they've issued a statement claiming Rebecca suffers from delusional disorder, fabricating memories of abuse." Rebecca's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. "Delusional? Show them these." She pulled back her sleeves, revealing the burns, old and new, the triangular brand on her shoulder, standing out among the more recent ritual marks. "The hearing is our chance to bring everything to light," Eli said, unpacking groceries with methodical focus. "I've arranged for a car tomorrow, bulletproof with a driver I trust. The courthouse will be secured by federal marshals." Hannah felt a chill despite the cabin's warmth. "You think they'll try something, even with all the attention on the case?" "I think people who believe they're carrying out divine purification won't be deterred by earthly laws," Eli replied grimly. The pendant data showed hundreds of members across the country, judges, doctors, police. "We can't trust the system to protect us." That night, as rain began to patter against the windows, Hannah found Rebecca still awake, examining the pendant they'd taken from Judge Green. The triangular silver piece caught the lamplight, the engraved symbols within it seeming to shift and change with the angle. "I remember when he would wear this during the rituals at St. Martha's," Rebecca said softly. "We were taught it represented the sacred triangle. Father, daughter, flame. I didn't understand until years later that I was the daughter in their twisted theology." Hannah sat beside her. "What happened after St. Martha's closed?" Rebecca's fingers closed around the pendant. "They separated us, sent the children to different facilities across the country. I was taken to a private residence in Virginia, told I was being adopted. But it was just another form of captivity, with private tutors who continued the indoctrination. She fell silent, lost in memories too painful to voice. Then, I escaped when I was 19, changed my name, lived on the streets, did whatever I could to survive without leaving a paper trail. I thought I was free. A bitter smile twisted her lips. Until I got sick last month. Pneumonia. I collapsed outside a convenience store. When I woke up in the hospital, I saw a nurse with the triangle pin, and I knew they'd found me. That's when they sedated you and faked your death, Hannah realized. They were going to use the cremation to eliminate any evidence. Rebecca nodded. The ultimate purification. No body, no investigation. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But fire has always been part of their ritual. We were taught that true purification requires passing through flame. The older children at St. Martha's would be burned repeatedly, small marks at first, then larger ones as we progressed. They called it sealing the faith. Hannah felt sick imagining children subjected to such torture. Tomorrow this ends, she promised. Green will face justice. If we make it to the courthouse, Rebecca replied, her eyes distant. They'll try to stop us. The Julgamento do Fogo, the judgment of fire, isn't complete. The following morning dawned clear and cold. The three of them moved with tense efficiency, preparing for the journey to Baltimore's federal courthouse. The armored car arrived precisely at 7, a stone-faced driver nodding respectfully as they approached. Rebecca wore a high-necked blouse that concealed most of her burns, her hair pulled back severely from her face. "I want him to recognize me," she had said while getting dressed. "I want him to see the girl he tried to destroy." The drive into the city was unnervingly smooth. Too smooth, Hannah thought, watching the familiar landmarks pass by. The roads were oddly empty for a weekday morning. "Something's wrong," Eli murmured, voicing her concerns. He leaned forward to address the driver. "Take a different route. Get off the highway at the next exit." The driver's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. "Can't do that, sir. Specific instructions for security purposes." Hannah felt Rebecca's hand clutch hers, squeezing with desperate strength. They both recognized the trap unfolding. When the explosion came, it was from directly beneath them, a precisely timed device as the car passed over a storm drain. The armored vehicle protected them from the worst of the blast, but it flipped violently onto its side, skidding across the asphalt in a shower of sparks and broken glass. Hannah's world tilted and spun, pain blossoming across her forehead where it had struck the window. Through the cracked glass, she saw the driver slumped forward, blood streaming from a head wound. Beside her, Rebecca was conscious but dazed, a gash on her cheek dripping crimson onto her white blouse. "Eli?" Rebecca called, her voice thin with panic. No response from the front passenger seat where he had been riding. Smoke began to fill the overturned vehicle. With desperate strength, Hannah kicked at the door above them until it finally gave way. She pulled Rebecca out onto the highway, where other drivers had stopped, people emerging from their cars with phones raised, recording the scene in stunned silence. "Help him!" Hannah shouted, pointing to the front of the car where Eli remained trapped. Several men rushed forward, working to pry open the crumpled door. In the distance, sirens wailed, but Hannah's attention was fixed on Rebecca, who stood swaying in the middle of the highway, blood seeping through her blouse where the impact had reopened some of her wounds. Despite her injuries, her expression was one of steel determination. "They won't stop me," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I will testify. The world will know what he did, what they all did." Later, in the hospital where Hannah's head wound was being stitched, they received the news. Eli had survived, though with serious injuries. The bomb had been sophisticated, the driver an imposter who had intercepted the real security detail, and in a final sickening twist, the ID found on the dead driver revealed him to be a former caretaker from St. Martha's home. Despite doctors' objections, Rebecca insisted on proceeding to the courthouse directly from the emergency room. "I've waited 15 years for this day," she told the FBI agents who had been assigned to protect her. "Nothing will stop me now." The courthouse steps were crowded with media, the story having captured national attention. Rebecca walked slowly up those steps, her bandaged face and blood-stained clothes a stark testament to the lengths her father's organization had gone to silence her. Hannah walked beside her, their linked hands a shield against the flashbulbs, and shouted questions. Inside the courtroom, Judge William Green sat with his legal team, his aristocratic features composed in an expression of dignified indignation. But when Rebecca entered, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or fear. As Rebecca took the stand, her voice carried clearly through the hushed room. "My name is Rebecca Winters. I was born to Catherine Winters, a caretaker at St. Martha's Home for Children. And the man who ordered me burned alive twice is my father, Judge William Green." The gallery erupted in shocked murmurs, and somewhere in the back of the courtroom, a man in a dark suit touched the triangular pin on his lapel, his eyes never leaving Rebecca's face. The headline dominated every newspaper in Baltimore. "Judge Green found dead in hotel suite." The morning sun streamed through the hospital room window, illuminating the stark black letters against the white page that Hannah held in trembling hands. Across from her, Eli sat propped up in bed, his face still bruised from the car bombing, a cast encasing his left arm. "Apparent suicide," Hannah read aloud, her voice hollow. "According to sources close to the investigation, Judge William Green, 70, was found hanged in his room at the Westmont Hotel early this morning." The discovery comes just 2 days after his explosive court appearance, where he was publicly accused by Rebecca Winters of being her biological father and the leader of a ritualistic cult operating out of St. Martha's Home for Children. She lowered the paper, meeting Eli's gaze. "Suicide," she repeated, the word tasting bitter. "You believe that?" Eli shook his head, wincing at the movement. "Not for a second. The organization is cleaning house. Green knew too much, had become a liability." The door opened and Rebecca entered, accompanied by 2 FBI agents who had been her constant shadows since the courthouse bombing. Her face was pale, the gash on her cheek now neatly stitched, but still angry red against her skin. She moved stiffly, each step a reminder of her reopened wounds. "You've seen the news," she said, not really a question. Her voice was flat, drained of emotion. Hannah nodded, making room for her on the vinyl visitor's chair. Rebecca remained standing, her posture rigid. "They're saying he couldn't live with the shame of exposure," she said, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "That he left a note confessing to improprieties at St. Martha's, but denying the wild accusations of cult activity." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Even in death he's controlling the narrative." One of the FBI agents, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped forward. "Ms. Winters, we've received the security footage from the hotel. There's something you should see." She opened a laptop, placing it on the rolling table beside Eli's bed. The grainy black and white footage showed a hallway in what was presumably the Westmont Hotel. The timestamp read 2:17 a.m. A man in a dark suit approached a door, knocked, and was admitted. 2 minutes later, the same man exited alone, straightening his tie as he walked away. The camera caught a brief, clear glimpse of his face. "Thomas Mercer," Hannah breathed, recognizing the man. "The supposedly dead doctor whose signature was on the crematorium form. Dr. Thomas Mercer died 5 years ago in a boating accident," the FBI agent confirmed. "His body was never recovered. We believe the organization faked his death, just as they attempted to fake Ms. Winters." "He's one of them," Rebecca said, her voice barely audible. "One of the inner circle. He was always at my father's right hand during the rituals." The second agent, a burly man with a military bearing, spoke up. "We've identified 17 members so far, including 3 judges, 2 doctors, a police captain, and several influential business people. But we believe the network is much larger, possibly nationwide." "What happens now?" Hannah asked, the enormity of the situation settling over her like a weight. "We continue building the case," the female agent replied. "Ms. Winters' testimony was just the beginning. Since the hearing, 6 other survivors have come forward. We're connecting the dots, following the money that funded St. Martha's and similar operations in other states." Rebecca moved to the window, staring out at the Baltimore skyline. "It won't be enough," she said softly. "They've had decades to bury evidence, position their people in places of power. My father's death will be ruled a suicide, and slowly, the investigation will hit roadblocks. Witnesses will recant or disappear. Evidence will be lost." She turned back to face them, a new resolve hardening her features. "Unless we take control of the narrative." That evening, in a secure conference room at FBI headquarters, Rebecca recorded her full testimony, every horrific detail of her childhood at St. Martha's Home, the ritualistic abuse disguised as religious purification, the network of powerful people who had protected and perpetuated the system. Hannah sat beside her, offering silent support as Rebecca spoke for hours, her voice sometimes breaking but never stopping. Eli, against medical advice, had discharged himself to be present, his journalistic instincts fully engaged as he helped shape the narrative into something undeniable, irrefutable. The silver triangle pendant lay on the table between them, its microchip data now fully decrypted to reveal not just the purification protocol, but financial records, member lists, and locations of other facilities across the country. "This needs to go public," Eli insisted to the agents. "All of it. If you try to handle this quietly, they'll find ways to bury it." The agents exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the suggestion. "There are protocols, proper channels." "Proper channels are compromised," Rebecca interrupted. "You have no idea how deep this goes, how many systems they've infiltrated. The only safety is in full exposure." Later that night, as Hannah drove Rebecca back to the safe house, they spotted a news van outside the FBI building. Eli had made his choice, Rebecca realized. He was going public with everything they had. By morning, the story had exploded across every major news outlet. Eli Barnes's byline topped a detailed expose in the Baltimore Herald, accompanied by photographs of the St. Martha's home, scanned copies of the pendant's encrypted files, and Rebecca's unfiltered testimony. The online version included the hotel security footage showing Thomas Mercer entering Judge Green's room minutes before his alleged suicide. Social media erupted. News helicopters hovered over the former St. Martha's home as federal agents conducted a thorough search of the premises. Anonymous sources within the FBI leaked additional names connected to the organization, triggering a cascade of resignations and hasty denials across Baltimore's power structure. 3 days later, as Rebecca was preparing to give a follow-up interview to a national news program, Hannah received an urgent call from the hospital. Eli had developed complications, an infection related to his injuries from the car bombing. By the time they reached his room, he was in critical condition, doctors working desperately to stabilize him. "Internal bleeding," the lead physician explained. "We thought we'd caught everything, but something was missed. It's as if..." He hesitated, looking uncomfortable. "It's as if the injuries suddenly worsened overnight, which doesn't make medical sense." Hannah thought of the hospital staff, wearing triangular pins, of the organization's reach into medical facilities. "Who had access to his room last night?" she demanded. The investigation revealed that an unidentified nurse had administered medication to Eli around midnight, though no such treatment had been ordered. By the time security footage was reviewed, the person had vanished. Another ghost in the organization's network. Eli Barnes died at 4:17 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday, his expose still dominating headlines nationwide, his final act of journalism having cracked open a decades-old conspiracy. At his funeral, Rebecca stood dry-eyed beside Hannah, watching as the man who had helped give her back her voice was lowered into the ground. "They'll keep coming," she said quietly to Hannah, as mourners dispersed under black umbrellas. "For both of us. As long as we're alive, we're a threat." Hannah nodded, the reality of their situation having settled into her bones over the past weeks. "Then, we keep fighting. We finish what he started." In the months that followed, Hannah and Rebecca worked tirelessly with federal investigators, survivor advocacy groups, and selected journalists to expose every facet of the organization. They published a book titled The Purification: America's Secret Cult of Power, dedicated to the voices that fire could not silence. The nationwide investigation revealed similar operations in 7 states, each disguised as religious children's homes, each practicing the same ritualistic abuse under the guidance of local power figures. Arrests were made, though many suspected members simply disappeared, their substantial resources allowing them to vanish into new identities. 1 year to the day after Rebecca had screamed from inside the crematorium furnace, Hannah visited her at the secure apartment where she now lived, under a new identity. Rebecca's physical scars had healed as much as they ever would, the triangular brand on her shoulder a permanent reminder of what she had survived. "I'm leaving the country," Rebecca told her without preamble. "The protection program has arranged everything. I'll have a new name, new background." Hannah felt the news like a physical blow, though she had suspected this day would come. "Will I ever see you again?" Rebecca's smile was sad, but genuine. It's safer if you don't. For both of us. She reached into her pocket, withdrawing a small, worn photograph. I found this inside my father's pendant. I thought you should have it. The photo showed a young woman holding an infant, their eyes, so similar to Rebecca's, gazing directly at the camera. On the back was written in faded ink, Catherine and Rebecca, St. Martha's, 1991. Your mother, Hannah said softly. Rebecca nodded. She died when I was 3. At least that's what they told me. Now I wonder if she tried to take me away, to escape the organization. She touched the photograph gently. I like to think she was trying to protect me. At the airport the next day, Hannah watched as Rebecca, now traveling under a name neither of them would ever speak aloud, passed through security, her slight figure soon lost in the crowd of travelers. The triangular pendant had been entered into evidence, its secrets continuing to unravel the organization's network, even as many of its highest-ranking members remained at large. Back at her apartment, Hannah found a plain envelope that Rebecca must have slipped into her bag. Inside was a handwritten note. Some people die twice, but some are reborn through fire. Thank you for helping me find my voice. Keep telling our story. Hannah placed the note beside the photograph of Catherine and infant Rebecca, a small shrine to a truth that had nearly been burned away forever. Outside her window, Baltimore continued its rhythms, the power structures shaken but not destroyed, the work of justice still unfolding. And somewhere across the ocean, a woman who had survived the fire twice began her third life, finally free of the mark that had defined her for so long. Some scars never fully heal, but they tell the story of our survival. Rebecca's journey through fire twice reminds us that the most dangerous threats aren't always visible. They hide behind respectability, power, and the assumption that no one will believe those they've silenced. What would you do if faced with such overwhelming opposition? Would you have Hannah's courage to pursue the truth regardless of personal cost, or Eli's commitment to expose corruption even knowing the ultimate price might be your life? The systems meant to protect us can sometimes be the very structures that enable our harm. Rebecca's story is fictional, but across America and beyond, vulnerable people face powerful interests that would rather bury inconvenient truths than confront them. The real act of bravery isn't surviving fire. It's speaking truth after the flames have touched you, knowing they might return. It's standing up when every instinct tells you to run, telling your story when the world has been engineered to doubt you. If this story moved you, remember that your voice matters too. The most powerful weapon against darkness will always be light, the light of truth, compassion, and unwavering determination to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Be that light in your own community. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us of our shared humanity. The fire of truth cannot be extinguished once it begins to spread.